class, Mr. Andrews here. This is an introduction to today's very first virtual class day, but it is also an introduction to the course overall. As we have met yesterday and met each other, at least in person, I didn't quite get to all the particulars of what to expect from 131, and so that's what this very first video is about. Now, there is a second video today, and that's going to be more specific to a strategy that I want to teach you, and you'll see that just below in today's lesson. But this particular lesson, I want to focus on walking you through the syllabus. Now, you're welcome to follow along if you want to, or you can just take a look at what I'm about to share here. But as you can see, I'm taking a look at our homepage on Canvas. And in that homepage at the very top is this module here labeled Course Resources. Now, you may or may not know this, but if you click on any one of those modules, it will usually open to a drop-down. Now, I try to keep this closed just because it kind of gets in the way sometimes. But when you need to open it, it can be really helpful. And one of the most helpful things here is the syllabus and the calendar. Now, a syllabus, if you may not be familiar with that term, is simply a roadmap of a course. Any college class that you ever take is probably going to have a syllabus. Think of it as almost like a contract between you and the class. It is a way of both understanding and appreciating what all the expectations are, the requirements for the course, but also usually it'll include something like a course calendar. And this one's no different. Now, there's a lot in the syllabus. You can see it's many, many, many pages. So I just want to give you some highlights here, some things to look for so that as you go through and maybe save your own copy of it, and you're welcome to save your own copy of it, by the way, you know exactly what you're looking at and what you're looking for. So just scrolling down here, some of the most important features from the top include my contact info. Of course, if you want to contact me at any point, make sure that you reach out to me via email. You can also reach out to me through Canvas messaging as well. It bounces to my email, so it doesn't really matter either way. But note something about my email is a little funky. Most people would expect that since my name is Chad Andrews, that my email would be C. Andrews. Guess what? It's not. It's C. Andrew1. Some monster at IT decided to give me that C. Andrew without an S and a 1 attached to it. So please make sure that you take note of that my email is a little wonky, and you want to make sure to just not write C. Andrews by default. Okay? The other thing to note is that there are 2 required texts, and you may be wondering, Mr. Andrews, you gave me 1 text yesterday, and it was purple. You're right. We don't have our second text yet. The one I gave you yesterday, the purple one, is writing analytically. That one is kind of like a writing guidebook. We will be looking at different parts of it, and it mostly discusses how to write. But the second one, this is the one we're probably going to be using even more often. This is our reader. It's a collection of essays and articles that we're going to be examining and talking about and writing about throughout the semester. It's going to be the subject matter of almost everything you write in this course. So know that that will be an important piece that I give you when I get it in. For now, though, I'm going to be providing you with all of those articles as we're waiting on the books. Now, I'm not going to read the whole course description, but I do want you to know one thing that's really important about this course and the expected outcomes, okay? And that is this. English W-131 is not just about writing. Even though the W is there for writing, it is actually more than that. It is reading, writing, and inquiry. That is the name of the course. Now, what are those 3 things, right? We know what reading is, obviously, right? How am I going to possibly teach you how to read better, so to speak? Obviously, you all know how to read at this stage. You probably can read fairly well. You probably can read fairly quickly. This isn't about that. It's not about your ability to read. It's about your ability to deduce information, and what do you do with that information? In other words, how do you think about reading? And we're going to try to examine some different strategies for reading in very practical ways. In college and in the work life, you're going to be inundated with a ton of information. And the question is going to be, how are you going to sift through that information? How are you going to prioritize that information? And maybe you have some methods and strategies now, but this course is designed to give you some more critical and analytical ways of doing that. The second thing is, of course, writing. We are going to focus on your ability to communicate your ideas better and to organize your ideas better and to write with really more finesse. The third thing, though, is inquiry. Inquiry, if you think about it, is a term that refers to questions, the ability to ask questions, and the ability to analyze ideas. So inquiry is all about your ability to ask questions of a text, to engage ideas in a text and really think critically about them in independent ways, actually, and in practical ways. So this is a class not just about writing. It's really a class about thinking. It's a class about your ability to analyze ideas, to break them down, to understand them, and then ultimately to communicate them, right? That's what this course is all about. So again, I'm not going to get into all of this. I'm going to expect that you will skim through it, though, and take a look at it. But a couple things you need to know. The grading breakdown. This is important to everybody, I'm sure. The grading breakdown is on a points system. That means IU has a total of 1,000 points in the system. And it's weighted depending on the different projects we have. We have 7 different papers in this course. You're probably going, woof, right? The good news is that 4 of those 7 papers are what we call micro themes. Now, a micro theme is just that. It is microscopic. It is a small paper. It is usually about 1 page long. You heard me right, 1 page long. But the thing is, it's quality, not quantity in this course. And so in each one of these, we're going to be focusing on a specific skill that you are building and you are learning in the classroom. And I'm going to be analyzing and looking very closely at your ability to present that skill on a quality level, okay? The good news is that you're going to get a lot of feedback on these micro themes, right? A lot of students get these back and they're marked all over. And it sounds scary, but the truth is you want those marks because those marks are what are going to help you as you get into these guys here, the bolded ones. The bolded ones, these 3 papers here, the comparative critique, the comparative analysis, and the research-based essay. Those are our 3 major papers for the course. And as you can see, they go up in point value, 150, 250, 300. So as we go, the stakes get higher and higher. But the reason why is because as we go through each paper, you're going to be building off of the skills. So the idea isn't to throw a lot at you from the beginning and then you're getting evaluated and graded heavy from the beginning. Heck no, you're going to get graded heavy at the end of the course because by then you will have had a chance to practice these skills, to refine these skills, and hopefully through my feedback and that of your peers, really have honed and finely crafted them, okay? So homework is a portion of this. It's worth noting that 10% of the course grade is wrapped up in your homework and your journals. I will tell you that even though it's only 10%, it is worthwhile to do all of the homework. And here's the reason why. Every one of these papers is going to be about something that we read about and we journal about in our homework. So if you're not doing the homework, if you're not participating in that, you already have a disadvantage on all the rest of that. Those other 900 points, you have a disadvantage on by not doing that 10%. So make sure that you are doing the homework. All right, so attendance policy. Here's the thing. We are in a strange scenario, right? And so you are expected to still attend class with this per IU policy. But it's worth noting that I'm going to have some flexibility about how you attend. Obviously, we are meeting half of the time on virtual days, so your attendance there that still counts as being in class, right? One thing to note about attendance is this. IU's policy is that you actually lose some of your grade if you miss a certain amount of classes. Let me repeat that again. Your grade can be affected by missing a certain number of classes, okay? Now, the reason they did this is because a lot of freshmen they were finding out who came to IU and were taking this course sometimes thought, hey, I got this. I can just write the paper from home, never come to class. And then they were finding that a lot of those students were actually failing because they weren't learning the skills, these new skills that they were being taught. And as a result, they had to figure out a way to get people to come back to class. This was the solution. So here it is. In this class, if you miss more than 5 classes, and that includes virtual ones, so if you're not checking in on those virtual classes and you're not responding to the virtual class in a way that tells me, hey, I watched today's class. If you're not doing those check-ins, you're not getting your attendance, right? If you're absent more than 5 times, you start losing a third of a letter grade. What that means is that if you have a B+ at the end of this class and you miss 7 classes, you're now going to lose 2/3 of a letter grade. So your B+ is going to go to a B to a B- because of those 2 over the 5. Okay, does that make sense? If you get over 7, if you have 7 absences, you're now losing 2/3 of a letter grade because of that. In my years of teaching this, and I've taught this 7 years now, I've only had 1 time where I had to use this. So just keep on top of it. I will try to keep on top of it too. If I find a student is hitting their 5th absence and it's going to start affecting them after that, I will usually say something to you and let you know. There are extenuating circumstances. If you're pulled from school because of sickness, extended sickness beyond your control, If you're pulled from school because of some family emergency, just communicate to me and we can make up those absences. But do know that unexcused absences, those will affect your grade, okay, ultimately, if you're missing over 5. Late policy, that's a big one, okay? This is different than a lot of courses you've probably ever taken. Maybe you had a teacher in the past that said, I will never accept a late work. Well, guess what? IU policy is that no late papers, and I want to bold it here. No late papers are accepted in this course, okay? So a deadline is a deadline is a deadline when it comes to the papers. I want you to know that, again, this does not mean there's no mercy. If there's an extenuating circumstance, if there's an issue that is beyond your control, okay, health, disaster, emergency, that kind of thing, you do need to let me know as soon as possible. Communicate with me, okay? So if, for instance, you get sick and you're out of commission for a few days and this is going to set you back and you believe you need an extension, you need to reach out to me in advance. And I want to make that clear prior to the due date, okay? So not the night of. You're not reaching out to me the night of and saying, hey, Mr. Andrews, I'm going to need an extension, and it's like an hour before the due date. That's not going to fly, and it's not going to be acceptable, okay? That is up to my discretion, though, all right? So any extenuating circumstances, you need to communicate with me, and I can potentially give you an extension. But I want you to know that in general, no late papers are going to be accepted. That's a general rule, unless it's been approved in advance, unless you communicated with me, okay? Process work. Will not be accepted for a grade if late. Now, it's worth noting that process work means like homework, day-to-day work, that kind of thing, okay? Important deadlines. There is an element of this course that involves some college work, right? Since you are in a college class technically, and if you want college credit, you need to make sure that you're registering with IU. So registration has a window of August 17th to September 11th. I will provide you with links and information. You should also be getting emails from IU about this. But what that means for you is that starting August 17th until almost a month away, so you got lots of time to do this, you should be registering for this class if you want the credit. Can you take 131 without getting credit? Absolutely. If you think that you're probably going to go somewhere and this credit's not going to transfer, or you just want the experience of taking this class, but you don't necessarily want to pay for it just yet, you think maybe next year you're going to retry it or retake it or something, you can absolutely take this without getting credit, okay? But if you do want to get that college credit simultaneously, make sure that you're registering between those dates. Again, I will send out info and a message about that. The drop date is September 11th as well. What that means is that's the last date that you can drop this class, okay? The last date that you can drop this class without penalty to your transcript. Withdrawal date, that is the last date that you can withdraw from this class on your college transcript without it going on your transcript as a failure or without it going on your transcript as a letter grade. So withdrawals are tricky. They are something that are an option to college students if you find that you're really struggling and maybe you're going to get a C in the course and you're like, man, I really don't want my GPA to reflect that. I think I could do better. You can withdraw from a course. Now, there are certain penalties to that, like you could lose some money in that exchange. You will have a W, meaning withdrawal, that goes on your college transcript. That W could end up being better than the grade you would have gotten, so it is a negotiation. Do let me know and communicate with me throughout the semester if you feel that you want to withdraw from the IU side of things, okay? Because it's still possible for you to finish this course, get your high school credit, and again, leave the college course. Plagiarism, as always, is not a non-starter in this class, okay? IU takes it very seriously, and it's worth noting that any instance of plagiarism, I have to report directly to IU. This means that it could affect and go on your record, on your college record. So plagiarism, when you're enrolled in this as an IU course, is even more serious than it would be at Carmel. At Carmel, maybe the first offense, you might have a little bit of leeway, right? Your teacher might give you a warning, issue a rewrite. In this particular case, it would result in a grade of an F for the class, okay? It can result in that. It certainly will result in that for the particular assignment. So just note that because you're under IU policies for being in an IU course, plagiarism is super, super serious. Do not plagiarize, okay? If you are struggling that much on a paper that you feel like you need to do something as far as that to finish it, you should be reaching out to me and talking to me, okay? Not doing that, because truthfully, we will catch it and it will be a problem for you, and I don't want it to be a problem for you. Last but not least, you can see here is the beautiful schedule. If you're in the Carmel or the Greyhound cohort, look at that hanging D. You will see the different dates that you have for each of your classes. Now, here's how the calendar is broken down. On the gray side, you'll see a gray row here. That's an in-person day. A white row is a virtual day, okay? So note that if you're in the Carmel, you might just want to print this off, save it, whatever, but just pay attention to one column or the other. Depending on which one, that's your date, right? The things that you see listed on each date, those are due on that day, or they are activities that we will do on that day. So it's worth noting that Kingwell, In Pursuit of Happiness, that is the article you should have read for today, right? We will also be conducting a notice-focused lesson today as well. That's going to be the next one. So that's just how to read this. Anytime you see a reading, that's when you will have been expected to read it by. Anytime you see an indication of a lesson, it's going to be happening on that day. So the two things that are listed there are what is due and what is being read, or what is being taught that day, okay? I also have listed out all of the times where we'll be starting a new paper, where it'll be due, and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to go into the entire calendar, but you're welcome to preview it and take a look at it through it. So that was a quick overview of the course, of the policies and the syllabus. I don't know if the word quick really applies to it, but it was an overview. Hey, how about that? If you have questions about anything that I went over, feel free to ask me in our next class or message me on Canvas. Guys, that's it for me for this introduction and overview of the course. Please scroll on down, though, to take a look at the video that has me going over the Notice Focus lesson. This is the very first of many strategies I will be teaching you about how to read, how to write, and how to think about ideas. That's it for me. Thanks.